Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Nightmares podcast. I am, of course, Mark.
David.
Brandon.
Zach.
Squirrels. Cool.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of really exciting stuff, and we'll get started in just a few moments. I know Brandon's got a few exciting bits of horror movie news, but I did want to say I wanted to give a big shout out to our last interview, James. Thank you so much for being on us. That particular interview / podcast should be up right now. We'll put a link in the description below. So one more list for Brandon.
So
Go ahead, man.
Very quick horror news. At the time of this recording, on September 3rd, 8:50 p.m. Central Time, in my hometown of Westfield, New York. This is actually the first night of filming for scenes for A Quiet Place 2 over there. Word around town is they're going to blow up a boat. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but word around town is they're blowing up a boat.
Nice. Cool. We're going to see what those creatures do in the water now. Awesome.
Yep. So yeah, the town's really exciting. The town's really excited. Unfortunately, I can't be there to see any of it, but I saw a little bit of the setup. They had a crane with a whole bunch of lights on there. I saw them setting up boats. There were cranes on the water. It was pretty cool. I can't wait to see what the harbor looks like in the finished film.
Absolutely.
Other quick bit of horror news. Just announced the other day, Adult Swim is adapting Uzumaki, my favorite horror manga, into an animated series. If you've not read Uzumaki, I highly recommend it. It is creepy as all hell. It is definitely the greatest horror manga ever created, arguably the greatest horror comic ever created. It's up there. It was written by Junji Ito, who also did Gaio, I think is how it's pronounced, Gyo. He was also going to be the writer of the Guillermo del Toro developed Silent Hill video game, which unfortunately did not come to be. That game could have been legendary, but that's in the past. And speaking of legendary video games, I think that's a good transition into our two guests for today. So here with us tonight are October Games, the creators of the asymmetrical multiplayer horror game Horror Legends, which is currently in early access on Steam. With us today are the two developers, Drake and Nicholas. Drake is the founder of October Games and is the lead game designer. And Nicholas, also known as Spectral Fields, is the music composer and game designer. Guys, welcome to the Nightmares podcast.
Woo! Woo! Thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Guys, thank you so much. It was really cool. It was really nice to meet you at the flashback weekend. I'm really glad we were able to set this up. I know all of our schedules are crazy, but we really appreciate you guys coming on and doing this with us.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for setting this up too.
Absolutely, guys. Absolutely. So I think we'll dive right in. So the one big thing is obviously you have this amazing platform that we've all had an opportunity to play. Actually, we replayed it about 20 minutes ago, which I really enjoyed. It's got a nice feel to it. It really does. I mean, especially for being an independent label, it's truly amazing what you guys are accomplishing. So the one thing I did want to talk to you both about is I want to go back a little bit, into your personal adventures. It's up to you who starts, but I definitely want to talk about, what are some things that influenced you, some horror movies that influenced you, some video games that influenced you to, start this passion project, because let's be perfectly honest, that's exactly what it is. It is a passion project. And it is all on the both of you to get that all happening, which obviously, as all of us being gamers, really appreciate. So as you can see by my Fallout shirt, Bethesda. That's another discussion for another day. Fallout.
Of all the shirts you could have chose, you chose that one.
Of all the gin joints in all the town. So, gentlemen, go ahead. And the floor is yours. I definitely want to hear about both of your adventures. And what inspired you? What got you into this crazy world?
For me, it started back in 2012. October Games started around 2012. I was just laid off from a previous job, and I was like, I'm all right, I just want to do something I love. So I started modeling Blade from Puppet Master and putting it on my portfolio. And actually, it's kind of a long story, so I don't want to get too crazy. But essentially, I met someone that was also modeling another character from that, and then we started collaborating. And then October Games was born. From that, we went out. We made like the fan project Puppet Master, the multiplayer prototype stuff, and from that, we started really focusing our own thing, which became Horror Legends, and that was like 2014 when we announced it, like almost exactly 5 years ago. Today is when we announced Horror Legends on Steam Greenlight, and yeah, it was just a lot of trial. We were really trying to build a team and try to get this idea out there of a asymmetrical multiplayer horror game that really inspired by like horror films and different horror scenarios. I wanted to be able to like mix and match different possible settings and characters to kind of craft your own horror experience in a way, almost like a horror movie sandbox. That was kind of where I was coming from. A lot of games that inspired me to make start designing Horror Legends was like games like Alien vs Predator, Resident Evil Outbreak. I really leaned on those as like I kind of want something like a mix between the two of those. Like I love the controlling a monster in Alien vs Predator, but I also like the cooperative like item management of Outbreak, and being able to complete an objective while the monsters hunting you was like I thought was super cool, and wanted to design a game all about that, and come up with all the different monsters that I loved from the horror films that I grew up watching, were possible characters that you can play as, and the survivors would have to kind of adapt to whatever came at them. Kind of similar to a horror film. Like in a horror film, one of my favorite parts of that is when they're trying to figure out how to defeat the monster. And I was like, if I can get the players to actually have those conversations in game, like naturally, then I've done my job. Like, like near like the third act of the film, the characters are kind of banding together and trying to go, how do we stop this thing? Well, it's allergic to this, or it does this, or it doesn't like sunlight, and they try to like gather their knowledge from their encounters of the monster to defeat it. And I wanted to really lean on that for the design of the game. It was really slow getting like the team together, finding the right programmer and finding like right artists and people to kind of help me get this out there. Didn't really come along until last summer, where I had tons of assets built from just constantly trying to, from previous attempts of making the game. And once I found the right programmer and I was able to get a prototype or the very first version of the Steam Early Access build that's out right now, out in November, and just kind of been trucking along ever since.
That's fantastic. That's talk about a passion project. That's fantastic. I mean, did you always kind of know that you were gonna design, get involved in the video game world in some way, or did you just kind of just decide after you left your previous job that this is something I just want to do?
I went to college for computer animation and film. Like I wanted to make movies, and my first job was making 3D grocery stores for market research, and it was in the game engine. So I had to learn how to make game environments, and so I never really I kind of went down a different path and just stayed there, and brought my love of film with me into my game career. And it's kind of, I guess, the roots of Horror Legends is in that, like, I love horror movies and I wanted to like show my love of those in a game, which is kind of what Horror Legends spawned from. I wanted to be more like about horror movies, but we went more comic route because it kind of matches my art style more, and think it really fits with like the whole kind of anthology feeling of the game with the different characters and different storylines.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That really comes through. Like today, we were playing in the Dream World and the Hedge Maze, and it's only in Horror Legends can you evoke both the nostalgia of Nightmare on Elm Street and The Shining within the span of like 20 minutes. It was freaking amazing.
That's a really good point.
There was a lot of yelling from one end of the apartment to the other as we were playing with him, especially playing with Zach. You would hear me from the other end. You know, like, you can go to hell. There was a lot of that. It was a lot of fun. Like I think I briefly mentioned it. It so reminded me of the GoldenEye maps, especially playing with just one other person, and just the anticipation of trying to find somebody. And even if you did find somebody, they would run right past you and then they'd disappear. It was the same thing. I spent so much time looking for him as the legend. It was harder to play as the legend, to be perfectly honest. I had such a difficulty trying to find him. I didn't find him until he actually opened up the portal, and like a jackass couldn't find the portal. So it was. But you know what though? But that's the cool part about all this. It engaged me so well. Like, I had such a blast playing it, and I think that's what's almost kind of missing from the video game landscape to a degree, is that I was 10 years old again, holding a Nintendo 64 controller and having a fucking ball. Like, I mean, that's, and you know what, you guys accomplished that. That's and I hope, and it's probably the best praise I can give you guys, is I felt like I was playing a GoldenEye again.
And looking at what's coming in the future, it's only going to get better, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do we want to talk about what the gameplay is?
I do want to hear what he has
let
to
him
say.
finish his statement.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think there's like a skill floor with our playing the legend. We very much have the idea of not wanting to hold the player's hand. We want to hold the player's hand a little bit, but not too much, because I feel like if your hand gets held too much, you kind of loses your own kind of like journey and experience through the game. So, we were very much focused on creating that element within our game.
Absolutely.
Also, like, one of the big things about the game is just utilizing the unknown. Like, with a video game, it's meta knowledge becomes like a huge part of it. And with horror, meta knowledge of how a game works kind of ruins that mystique, and like that ruins the mystery of what, like, once you like discover how a monster works in a video game, like an AI monster, like, it's not scary anymore. You know exactly what you need to do to get away from it, right? It's got to be fair. It's got to allow you to beat the game. But in Horror Legends, it's controlled. It's controlled by a player. You don't know what kind of monster it is until you see it in the game. Like, that whole element of the early game is super important, of like the mystery and stuff. So having not holding the player's hand is very important in that aspect, where they're just going to have to it's basically, I want to take you and destroy you in an environment with a monster, a horror movie monster, and see if you can survive. It's kind of a challenge. Like, we don't want to make it super, like, we don't want to balance the game to death. We're not really trying to make it like super competitive, but more about like challenging the cast player. Like, can you survive against this monster, or
do you eat it? I definitely, before we moved on, though, I did want to hear, we started with you. I do want to hear your story, good sir. About your crazy journey as well, and jumping into this, and and what inspired you to get involved in what you grew up video game wise and horror movie wise as well.
Yeah, so my inspiration for this certainly comes from a lot of more so the video game side, I'd say. I played a lot of games like Damned, Dead by Daylight, White Noise 2, Friday the 13th, and those games, like, it ended up being, it was weird. When I was a little kid, I actually was terrified of like scary movies and just the dark and stuff. And then I felt like as I got older, that kind of like flip-flopped, and it ended up becoming my favorite genre because of how like exciting it can make you feel sometimes. And so the horror genre quickly became my favorite genre of video game, especially like multiplayer horror games. So, and then as far as like my background's concerned, I'm a musician, a music composer, and most of my music composing kind of was more before I came on board from Horror Legends. I was making a lot of like contemporary, classical, neoclassical, even electronic music. And then my love for this horror genre, there was like a void that wasn't being filled for me. I wanted to create horror music, but I didn't have like necessarily a reason to. The only reason sometimes I would have would be like on Halloween, leading up to Halloween, I'd make like a horror track or something, but there was no real like huge incentive. And then once I ended up meeting Drake, it just felt like the perfect match. And so, we ended up working together and making tons of spooky music is like something that I absolutely am so passionate about. I really want to kind of like make the players feel like they're immersed in a world that's like, scaring them to death, and like, but also like kind of endearing and spooky, and all the other kind of feelings that come along with it. So, yeah, that's a little snippet of my background, yeah, we're excited to see what's in store for the future.
Absolutely, and just to satisfy my own curiosity, what is your favorite horror movie score?
Favorite horror movie score? I'd say I'm follow more or less the composers. I love Danny Elfman. I think he's probably my favorite. One of my favorites, for sure.
Of course. Yeah.
So definitely him.
Rock and roll. The B-Man, I know you wanted to add a few bit of toppings.
Yeah, let's talk about the gameplay itself.
Yeah.
The game is in early access. You're still building an audience. I think once more people learn about the game, I don't think finding an audience will become an issue in the future.
We hope so.
Because as the four of us have discussed, that this game really is. I don't want to say a horror movie in a game. It's horror movies plural in a game.
That's definitely the intention.
It's a good way to describe it.
It's everything, and even based on our conversation that we had when we met at Flashback Weekend, it's gonna be more of everything as it keeps getting updated, which I'm really excited about. About an hour or so before this podcast, you guys posted something on the October Games Facebook that looks really cool, but we'll talk about that a little later in this interview. But yeah, I just want to talk about like what the gameplay actually is, so our viewers can get an idea of what kind of game this is. Zach, do you want to talk about
that? We could. Since I met you guys, I've played the game about 5 times. Once today, and 4 others just over the past couple weeks with my buddy, just messing around and testing the game. I love the amount of legends you have in the game, and I like that you're adding a new one soon. I like the uniqueness between each one of them, and I like the fact that each one has their own, like, to win as the cast, you either have to kill the legend, or you can find the sigil and escape. I like the fact that you have options, and I also like the fact that you can defend yourself in a way. Like, you're not just running and hiding all the time. You actually have a means of self-defense. Like, the combination of all these things makes this a much more unique experience compared to Friday the 13th, Dead by Daylight, or any of the other games out there. Yeah, it's a very fun experience. It's a very unique experience, especially in this genre of video games. So, yeah, would you guys like to add anything onto that?
Well, thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely the intention. Like, as like the approach for each legend is just like they're kind of like their own game modes in a way. Like it's each legend's you play the against, like, you're playing against Punky is much different than playing against Killer Keith. Like, the cast have different strategies they have to adapt to. First, like, fighting Punky, you could kill him, but he'll just keep respawning. Whereas if you fight Killer Keith, he might not be able to die if you're by yourself. But it's like there's different mindsets you have to kind of adapt when facing different legends, so it keeps them on their toes. And making one strategy to rule them all is kind of impossible when you're not, especially at early game, you don't really know if a shotgun is going to do anything, or it's going to be pointless to like empty a shotgun into a legend. You might just waste your ammo if you're not using it at the right time. Like, those type of things come into play. They're really big into our design for each character. like one weapon could be useless against one legend, but it's very useful against another. It's all about versatility and improvising kind of your situation and kind of dealing with it. We always want to give you a chance to survive, but sometimes that chance seems like it's really narrow, or it depends on what situation you're in.
Yeah, and I think once we start adding more legends into the future, it's really gonna like open up the freshness of each match being completely and utterly unique. Like every legend's gonna have its own sort of like niche way you play against it, its own meta, if you will, about how you go about playing against a certain legend. And like Drake was saying, it's like, is this weapon going to be good for this versus legend? And it might not be. And then so like you're forced to make these decisions within the game, like, do I take this shotgun, or do I take this machete instead, or do I pick up this health item instead, or and we're going to add so many other utility items in the future that are going to like be kind of like catered for certain situations. So it's really kind of open-ended, and we're trying to keep it really fresh.
Yeah, every time we add a new legend or map, it just kind of changes that meta for that one legend, like entirely. Like playing against like the Gourd Horde on the cabin map it's like probably one of the hardest things to do in the game right now, because the Gourds are everywhere and it's a small map, but playing the Gourds against in the hedge maze might be really hard for the Gourd legend, because the Gourds are all kind of trapped in the maze and they can't really find, the AI Gourds can't really find the players as easily as they could in the cabin. So there's those type of decisions are intentional, like having when you're the legend and it's your turn to pick a map, think about that. Like, is the legend I'm going to pick going to be good on this map? Because sometimes they might not be. So that's something to consider.
Right.
And it's very intentional. And if you do happen to be the Gourd Horde on the hedge maze, then you better have a strategy in place for when you are playing that. But
that was definitely one thing I thought was interesting, how the killer got to choose the map. Usually they leave it up to like a vote for like the entire group of people who's in the like party or whatnot, but no, it was the killer. I thought that was a pretty fun and interesting prospect. So you got to like play and come up with your own custom scenario to really scare the hell out of people.
Right.
Yeah. One thing I would like to talk about is the individual characters themselves, especially your main guy, Punky. Like, one thing I love about him is, like, when you pick him, the pressure's always on, because you got the little Gourd Hordes always moving towards the victim, kind of, like, pressuring them to, like, keep moving, because no matter what, they're going to give away the location. Like, you can't camp when he's on the map. Because eventually they're going to find you, reveal your location, and then bam, Punky's just going to come and rip you to shreds and stuff like that.
the pacing is very fast paced against Punky because of that very reason. Like he doesn't really you're not really supposed to be very stealthy with him. You encourage you to be aggressive as possible with Punky, because dying has no penalty for him. He can throw himself at you and take the shotgun shells or whatever you throw at him, and he doesn't really care unless all his pumpkins are destroyed. But like having that pressure, it almost makes it more of a fast-paced game mode compared to Killer Keith, where stealth is everything. Or if once he finds you and catches you, it's kind of over. So you'll want to be really stealthy. So it's just that those different mindsets keep the game fresh.
Yeah, it's very fun. Like, one fun scenario actually happened earlier today when him and my buddy Wes were playing. I was Punky and I killed my buddy Wes, so he was the little Gourd Horde trying to find him. He find him. He was about to kill me because I had low health and he had low health. I sacrificed the little Gourd Horde, got a bunch of health, and just slaughtered him. He's like, "What just happened?"
You died. That's what just happened.
But also because of Wes, I was able to find you, and I eventually killed you too.
Yeah.
And Brandon won.
No.
Once.
Twice.
Not at
I
all.
won twice.
Because we let you.
You keep telling yourself that.
Sure, we'll go with that. No, my favorite was playing against you, and you actually opened up the exit in the dream world, but he couldn't find the fucking exit. He ran around trying to find the exit, and I finally caught up to him.
I really love the design of the dream world. It's very maze. Like, it's very easy to lose legends, but it's also very easy to get lost and not find the direction you're looking for.
Oh yeah, no, it took me at least. That was one of the first levels I played as a legend, and me trying to navigate around that place was crazy. And again, like, it all, like, that's the funny part, because it reminded me, and actually now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, it reminded me of the temple level in GoldenEye. It had that. I had that, and that's where I had my flashback of being 10 years old and running past people and everything else.
PTSD came in.
The like, oh my god, like, Mom said you can't shoot me until I have a gun. And that was a rule in the house.
That sounds like something you should be telling your therapist, and not us.
Fair point.
But if this isn't therapy, what is? Anyway, so you know what though, the one thing I did want to talk about too, because didn't want to leave this out. We are really big on education and trying to bring the elevator down to the next generation of game makers, filmmakers, and things like that. The one thing I would love to talk to you guys about is what are some advice that you can give, either on the creative side or the business side, to some of the other people that, like, I want to do what these guys do. I want to make my own independent video game. I love, even if it's not a horror genre, what advice would you give? Or, if you could go back in time and say, hey, talk to yourselves a year or 2 years ago and say, hey, don't do this, but keep doing this. What would that be?
I would tell myself this might sound really bad, but not to go to college and just learn it myself. But yeah, college is kind of a waste of money, and like everything I learned on my own, and college gave me very minimal knowledge on how to do this stuff. Like, I went to school for computer animation and film, not game design, and that's what I'm doing now. So I had to adapt and learn everything anyway. So if you're going to get into the creative field, consider, at least before you go to college, try learning it on your own first and see if it works for you. You might have a harder time finding work without the degree, but at least you won't have that debt over your head and that pressure. That sometimes is way better than the degree. Like not having an invisible house that you can't live in, is going to give you so much room to spend money on tools or other things you can learn. And some studios don't even care about that degree, because it's just like, it depends on the studio, of course. But yeah, that would be my advice, is just try to learn everything on your own first before you get too involved with college and staying up all night trying to do an algebra test, and you're there for animation and you're like, why am I doing algebra when I should be animating right now and trying to make a film or something? Like, what the heck? But anyway, I'm a little bitter about that, so I'll pass it off to Nick.
Well, it's interesting. I think Drake makes a good point. I never see things as black and white, though. I'm actually an academic myself. I work at a college, and so my experience in the academic world has actually been a really good one. But I also recognize what Drake is saying, because it's all kind of like a balance of like what your priorities are, like in your own life. You kind of have to assess your own situation, and if it's right for you, then it is, and if it's not, then it's not. But I'd say the biggest piece of advice I'd give to someone who's inspired to be, a video game designer or a musician or composer, is just to never give up. Like, develop some discipline for yourself. Develop like a good routine where you're constantly working on your craft, constantly mastering your craft, and just keep at it. And really, like, if you keep at it and you're constantly working on yourself, you will make it. You will get there eventually. So
that's really good advice. Yes, I can't. Actually, I want to double down on it. It's having that schedule and being consistent. Like, you could, even if you don't feel like you're very good at something, just if you're consistent with it, you'll get better. Like, don't discourage yourself to stop working on it because I'm not very good, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, well, so was everyone else when they first started. So if you have all you need is passion. Skill comes later.
Right.
And so as long as you have that, go for it.
I think also too. Oh, go ahead.
I was just and make sure you are consistent. But yeah.
Yeah, I think also too, like with a lot of things in life, like there's a lot of things that are very challenging, really things that are really hard to do, like make a video game or organize a whole podcast or, write a complete, music score. These things are not easy things. And I think a lot of times with people who are just starting out, they kind of get discouraged when they do 10% of the work, and then all of a sudden it all comes crashing down, and then they get discouraged from that failure. But really, those failures are what should motivate you to keep going, because it happens to everyone. It's just, things are hard. Things are very hard sometimes, and you just got to persevere.
Mm-hmm. And also, I want to add to that is when you start something, it can seem very daunting, but the more you do it, the easier it is to go back into it. Say when you first have an idea and you want to start it, you're like, it's going to seem like, oh, I have this really long road ahead of me. But once you start making progress down that road, you're like, it's going to be easier to go back to it and continue, because I already done this much progress. When I was younger, before I went to college, and I would just start projects. I'd have like 50 projects going at once, and it was just, I would never finish anything. I would start them and just move on to something else. But once you learn how to be consistent, like, that's a skill in itself. Like, just to continually, teach yourself, like, I must do this, even though I might not feel like it right now. I'm going to do a little bit,
right.
And then
it's almost like it becomes a habit.
Yeah, it becomes a habit, or you have to discipline yourself to like only focus on one thing. It's like, I really want to work on this other idea I just had, but I already got this other idea going. I got to continue with that. If you can master that, then I think you can actually finish. Once you finish one project, it becomes easier, because you can I can actually finish something. Oh my god.
Yeah.
But that was a big problem for me starting out. It just could never finish anything. But
I always feel like too, like a lot of the art projects and stuff that we work on, for me, is it's almost like I need to do it in some way in order to live like fully, like there's there's something missing if I'm not working on this art, or composing this music, or working on the game. Like there's literally something missing, and if I don't work on anything, I'll be like messed up for until I can get back into it. Like it affects you. So
I'm totally that way. Yeah.
Ironically enough, that's the reason this whole company exists.
Yeah.
If this is why this company exists, for that last sentence and that last sentence alone. Ironically enough,
it really, yeah.
The so I can't even say that. So the last thing too, I'll ask about the business side of things is, what are some big struggles that you haven't you never really anticipated to run into in that type of world, in type of independent video games. What are some things that you run into, whether it be the business side of things of selling your product, or doing networking. What are some struggles that you've run into that you didn't really necessarily think about until you actually got to that point?
Well, one that comes to mind right away with game in the relationship to gaming is actually getting everything set up on Steam was kind of a pain in the butt, but that's just kind of a small thing. Steam was very annoying.
Don't worry, they're not sponsoring our videos.
I'm fine. Yeah. Like when you said that, like I just immediately got triggered thinking of like how me setting up Horror Legends on Steam and how annoying it was. But finding a strong team can be very hard to do. Try to, when you're first starting out, try to work on something that you can do on your own, and if you that way you can actually like don't have to like rely on someone else to like do their part. Otherwise, you have to feel like you might have to pressure them to do their part, and it becomes kind of an awkward situation. Just try to do something that you can do on your own, is when you're starting out with, well, you're making like a product or something like that. But maintaining a team and keeping them as motivated as you could be very difficult. But yeah, that's why it took me so long to get October Games and Horror Legends out, because I would have a hard time finding the right programmer for it. I'm an artist, so I don't program, but I had this idea for it, and I reached out to many programmers. The whole game started because I knew a programmer, and we talked about it, and we started working on it, which became the Puppet Master prototype. But he got busy, and then lives changed, and now like the project fell apart, and keeping that dream alive was very difficult, finding a replacement for him, and it took me years and years And but yeah, so yeah, if you're starting on a new project and you're the only one that's interested in it, make sure before you start it that you can do it on your own. That would help a lot. I'm lucky that I met Nick and came along and helped and became part of the team and provides like all this awesome music and is actually now becoming a map designer and game designer. It's like it's great, but like having having the opposite of that, like you're relying on someone to do their part and they just never do, and it's frustrating and the project could just fall apart. So that's a big challenge, just finding the right team.
We definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of similar to filmmaking. You need the right team. As you guys mentioned, there's a lot of skill that goes into all this that most people just don't even think about. Like when we play the game, we see the cast and the legends there. We see the weapons and the maps. We see the maps themselves, the obstacles, the fog. Lots of fog, especially in a couple of those.
We're watching a lot of episodes of Goosebumps over the last couple of days. They use a lot of fog machines.
Yeah, I think it was either our first or our second game that we played tonight. I mentioned Wes asked Brandon, "Where are you?" "I'm where the fog is." I feel like I'm in an episode of Goosebumps.
Well, thanks for the fucking heads up.
But yeah, so there is a lot of skill that goes into it. On this podcast, we've talked a lot about what goes into making a movie, but this is the first time we've really talked about what goes into making a video game. So what does actually go into designing and programming a video game? What goes into composing the music for a video game? Is there any difference to technique to composing a video game as opposed to a film? So what goes into your guys' process?
Nick, do you want to start off with the composing? Talk about
Sure.
the composing for a bit?
Yeah, sure. So, first when I joined Horror Legends in October Games, I was strictly the music composer, and then as my time developed with the company, I kind of became a game designer as well. I mean, me and Drake now we talk like religiously about game design and new things for the game and future updates and what we're planning. And I've gotten familiar with the game engine very well, and I'm designing maps and stuff, and that process has been really fun. And I think one element from my side as far as like the music is concerned is I'm always constantly thinking about like themes within our game and like trying to create this atmospheric feeling for this map or or a theme for a legend. So like I think the perfect example for like composing a theme for a musical theme for something or someone is like Star Wars. When you listen to Darth Vader's music, he doesn't have to be on the screen for you to know that he's like around the corner somewhere. So like the theme and variations element within music composing is super important as far as my process is concerned, but it's not limited to just that, because like certain like maps don't really necessarily need more. They need more of like an atmospheric feel. So it's kind of like you have all these tools to work with, and you're just kind of like using the right ones for the right job. And then as far as what I do for the game, besides the music part, is I work with a lot of assets that Drake has, and we build these maps, and I'm really focused about making the gameplay as best as possible. So there's corners that you can hide in, or like there's ways to get out of buildings that are optimal. You're not trapped in an area and it's kind of feels frustrating or something. Or we take everything into consideration, and you play test the hell out of it after, and you kind of go back and refine your vision after, and you're constantly refining and making it better. So those are some elements. I guess lastly, before I pass it off to Drake, one big part that me and Drake are really involved in is we spend countless hours on Discord talking to each other about new updates for the game, ways to make the game better. We're up till like 2 a.m. all the time, just refining our game and trying to make it the best game possible. And I absolutely love that part of our interaction. Just dreaming up new things to make the game just as best as it can be.
We have a similar process of how we do things over here. We are always on the phone with each other, always talking, whether it just be all four of us, or Zach and myself, or Brennan and Zach are actually roommates, so it's a lot easier for them. David and I are sometimes left out in the dark, but that's okay. I'm not bitter. But yeah, no, we share a similar process, and that's a lot of times that's the only way to get it done. You got to talk about it. You gotta constantly be refining.
Right. And the other thing too is it's kind of like circling back to how things aren't easy. It can be challenging. Like sometimes you'll encounter roadblocks or certain things that along the way that kind of like inhibit you from fully developing your point with each other, or like working cohesively. And I think that's just a normal thing. You end up going through that because it's complicated, right? Like anything in life really is just a complicated process. And so I think there's merit to be said that those kind of things are normal. Just like running into some roadblocks, you just got to work together to get around them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, working on a lot of there's a lot of financial roadblocks when it comes to games are super expensive, like
right.
And sometimes you have to kill your darlings to improve the game. Like, we made this cool mechanic, but we found out that it's better to do it this way, so let's just cut it and replace it. And it's like, well, that was money well spent, I guess, for like a week or a month or whatever, how long that feature stayed in the game. Like Punky used to have the ability to summon gourds manually through his pumpkins, but through gameplay we realized, oh, that's annoying. Like, it's annoying for Punky to constantly going back to his pumpkins. Like, in theory it sounded cool, like it would make him kind of patrol his pumpkins more, but it took away from the experience, so we cut it and just made the gourds spawn automatically. So that's kind of an example of just like some of the challenges you could do with just designing a game. Is it could be, you're always like revising it, like, well, that's why early access is so great. You could, we don't really have access to like this huge testing group of people that's just gonna like shoot us like bugs or whatever. We kind of have to rely on the community. So like Steam Early Access gives us the opportunity to like for people to like buy the game early and like kind of help us develop it and like give us feedback, because we don't really have access to that type of system.
Group of people.
Yeah. We don't have a dedicated testers. So
Yeah.
we have to, and there's so many.
We
things
are
that
the
could go wrong.
dedicated testers.
Oh yeah, we were up till like 2 in the morning last night just testing new code for the next update, and it's a doozy. So there's so many little things that can go wrong. You tweak one thing, and then all of a sudden, like, why are my arms going inside my body? Like, why is that happening? Like everyone's holding the shotgun backwards for some reason. Like, oh, because we added this feature and it turned this translation or did something or this. Yeah, you never know what could happen. So I'm excited when I get new code in from the programmer, but then like I'm like scared at the same time, like what's gonna fall apart. And there's always this process of me and Nick just going in there, let's like take toll of the damage and let's see if we can fix it before the update needs to come out.
Sounds like you doing graphics or effects.
Oh, trust me, they have it a hell of a lot worse.
Oh, I know. No. That's
I have it bad. They have it. No, programming, no. There's a reason why I didn't get into gaming. I saw that. I'm like, nope, I'll stick with visual effects. That's so much easier.
Yeah, it's... I long to just do graphics someday, like... I have so many graphics I need to make and polish, and like there's so many things in the game that I want to like tweak and whatnot, but I'm too busy bug testing to really do that right at the moment. So hopefully with the game actually gets a little bit more successful, I can spend more time on it and polish the art more and spend more time on the art.
But yeah,
I was gonna say, yeah, program is a pain. Yeah, so
yeah.
I feel you for that one.
Anyways, with all those bug fixes and new codes and everything, hearing back from the community, you do have updates coming. It sounds like you have a big one coming in October this year. Do you want to talk about what's to come in the future, both in that update and beyond? Like you just like I mentioned your Facebook post about an hour or so ago. It was a GIF of a model for a werewolf, which all four of us thought that looked pretty darn awesome.
Yeah, it did.
I really like werewolves. I wish there were more werewolf movies out there.
Yeah, me too.
Like they're just so barbaric, and it's like with a vampire's gotta seduce you. A werewolf will tear you to shreds without giving a second thought.
I'll tell you why there's not a lot of werewolf movies. Is because it's so expensive to make a werewolf suit that looks good. So werewolves are. I mean, the vampires are easy. Just put some teeth in and maybe some face makeup if you want to go a little bit step further. But like werewolf, it's so hard. So they kind of died off for a while.
Yeah, you either got to spend half your budget on that, or your stuff looks like hot garbage.
Hot garbage.
Hot garbage.
Which is unfortunate sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Late Phases. It came out, I think, 2014. One of my favorite werewolf movies. But the worst part about the movie is the actual werewolf suit. It literally looks like a bath rug was glued onto a person.
What do you like about the movie? I think of myself a werewolf in the trailer. I probably wouldn't even watch it. So
the story is great. The characters are great. Literally everything about the movie is great, except for the actual werewolf design.
That kind of defeats the purpose.
But it's still a great story. But I think we're getting a little off topic here.
It's like a zombie movie with no zombies in it. Like, it's just...
No, but for October we want to do something real special. It's the name of our company. Horror Legends is a very Halloween focused game. It's not all about Halloween, but our main big bad is a Halloween character. So we gotta go big or go home on October. So we're adding a lot of cool stuff. I guess the top tier item would be the Werewolf Legend. I think there's a deficit of werewolf games on the market, and we really wanted to throw our hat in there and show you like what you could actually do with a werewolf in a game, especially one like ours where it's a arena survival horror multiplayer game. And I would love to see what it feels like to be hunted by a werewolf in a video game. Like you just don't see that in any real game. Like the last game I can think of that had a werewolf in it was probably the Order 1886, and that, from what I understand,
that was an interactive movie.
Yeah, that didn't really sell the werewolf aspect like it could have, but the werewolf is going to be coming in October. It's going to have its own system, like objective to kill the werewolf and everything. We're going to involve a silver weapon you have to use to kill the werewolf. I don't know how much detail I should go onto like the specifics. I could easily just start going down a path and never return.
I think we can go into some.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So like the werewolf, what it's gonna make it fun is like the werewolf is gonna be kind of not super squishy, but it's gonna be pretty quick, and you could take it down pretty quickly on it. But like if you kill him with a normal weapon, he'll die, and then after a couple seconds he'll respawn in that location and continue fighting. So basically you're only knocking him out with a normal weapon. The way you kill him in the game is you have to find a silver dagger or silver weapon of some kind that spawns randomly in the map, and then when he's dead you attack his dead body with that silver. You have to stab him with it, and then he'll be dead and you won. But the werewolf is going to be very stealthy and quick and vicious. It's going to be we haven't really done a full game with him yet, so we're still kind of ironing out the details of how fast is he going to be, how strong is he going to be. But just the initial testing of the werewolf animations in the game engine was pretty scary, because he's both two-legged and four-legged, or he goes on all fours or on on his hind legs. Like you saw in the animation, he's crawling on all fours. We're gonna have a whole system around that. He's gonna be able to travel quickly without using stamina on all fours. So
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. He's
So if
very
I
quiet, hide in the bushes.
down, I don't have to worry about eventually slowing down when I run out of stamina. I can just chase him down and do what I need to do.
Running from a werewolf is probably not a good idea because you're probably going to want to kill him, like put him down and then hide from him or something.
I can just see these guys playing this and everything else. Like, where's the silver knife? It's in the fog somewhere. Thanks for the fucking heads up, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like he's gonna be kind of the opposite of Killer Keith, where Killer Keith was very running for him was the strategy because he's so slow. The werewolf would be the opposite. Like you want to put him down. You're probably gonna kill the werewolf multiple times before you actually find that dagger, and the werewolf's gonna keep coming out. He's like a mix with. He's gonna be kind of like a. I took inspiration from how the alien works in AVP, in the video game, where it's like really fast and kind of squishy and can do a lot of damage. So, yeah, it will have the ability to regain its health by eating corpses. So, like, it kills someone, like, it takes damage, you'll like be able to like eat the flesh of the body, like just like kind of nibble on it and get health back. And you can actually do that to a living cast member. So if you're fighting someone, you bite them, you'll get health back from biting them. So like in combat, like say if they got the weapon, like on the werewolf, if I get downed, they're gonna kill me. So you can strategically leech health off them during a fight and try to take one out, and then run away, then attack a different angle. You're gonna feel like we want to make you play like a wild animal, and play more cautiously than you would with other legends. But like once you know that silver dagger's in play, you kind of want to be careful. But like before that. Yeah. You want to be all over the map, chasing them down and just mauling them. But we're still ironing it out, so I'm kind of nervous to say anything without, because we're still in the early phases of testing mechanics.
That's
totally that's the rough idea. It's like a very fast, vicious character that could be where you can use a gun on it and it will take him down, but he'll just come back. We're actually playing with the idea of having him invincible for a couple of seconds after he respawns. So like you don't just camp him. You don't just surround the corpse and
that makes sense.
Like just shotgun him when he gets back up. Like he's gonna be invincible for like 10 seconds when he respawns. So get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah. 10 seconds can be a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All these are just like hypothetical numbers. Like that could be 5 seconds depending on how we balance.
We'll have to see how it feels in the future.
Yeah.
It's only been in our little test build for I think about a week now, but I'll tell you. Watching that werewolf prowl in the bushes, he's like 15, 20 feet away from you, and his red eyes are just glowing in the, in the fog, in the bushes. It is freaky. So he's definitely going to add a very unique freak factor to the game that's not currently in the game at the moment.
Yeah, more beastly.
Nice.
Less human.
Is there anything else that we can look forward to in the update?
There's actually a lot. And the werewolf, there's so much with the werewolf that I could say on that for so long. But like, we're adding a new map, a map that's going to be a suburban street on Halloween night. So it's going to feel like we're looking at Halloween 1, that street with like the. Maybe Halloween decorations on the houses, maybe candy wrappers on the floor, autumn leaves. It's at night. There's like street lights and stuff, and so we want to give you that classic, Halloween environment for the month of October.
I love it how you guys are slowly moving to like cabin in the woods level of all kinds of meta running around.
Cabin in the woods, yeah, that's a great comparison. We like that idea of like just mixing and match, like in that movie, like they didn't know what was going to come at them until they activated a certain thing in the basement, right? So it's like, yeah.
Maybe in the future you guys will have like a cabin in the woods, fuck it all level where we have like five legends on one side and 5 cast members on the other side, and just saying fuck it, go.
Well, that kind of reminds me. One of the things we're going to be doing for October is legend pregame mode. So I don't know if you're familiar with the pregame mode that's currently in the game, where you're just playing a cast member killing gourds randomly while you're waiting for people to join, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're adding one for the legends. So when you're hosting the game, you can pick a legend. And I might have told you about this at the con, but I'll just tell you for the podcast. Basically, when you pick the legend pregame, instead of gourds walking around the map, is a bunch of ravers that are just like partying in the map, and you're the monster, and you're just gonna run around and murder them. And there's like boom boxes in the map, and these ravers will run to the boom box, start dancing and stuff, and like saying stupid things. And we actually have a system in place, so the X amount of ravers that you kill, it will spawn a cop, so it will get progressively harder as you keep doing that.
Nice.
And the best part about this pregame is that other legends can join in. So say if you set the level of the player requirement to like 5, you're gonna have 4, or you're gonna have 4 legends running the map, killing ravers, fighting each other as well. The legends can fight each other. It's like a legend death match with ravers in there and cops shooting. It's gonna be chaos. It's gonna be hilarious.
So essentially, you're adding a very fun single player moment while you're waiting, and yeah, I love that idea. Thank you for that. That is amazing.
And now I'm getting a Halo flashback. Free for all.
Just had to bring Halo in this.
One of the main reasons we wanted to bring this this game mode in was that with our old version we had the pregame as just you could pick a cast member and like run around, and you could play with the different weapons and fight against gourds, and that was really good to get you to familiarize with the game. But we realized that there was no way for you to like jump in and learn how the legends worked. It was always you had to like be in a multiplayer lobby for those to figure out how they worked, and they were actually, the legends are quite complex, as you brought up before. When you were in the hedge maze, there's definitely like a learning curve to some of the legends. So we needed to bring this mode in so that players could jump in and get a feel for it, but also have fun and make it engaging. So I think that really kind of hits the nail on the head, and we're gonna like progress it into the future too. I think like we've talked about some things on the horizon, what we want to do with it. But we can't really talk about that now. But it's really something that we can really build upon. Like this is a great like kind of foundation for this game, this like pre-game lobby mode, and then it's going to be something really cool in the future too.
Yeah, the pre-game is actually probably going to be just as complex as the actual game mode. I feel like pre-game is underselling what this is going to be. It's almost like we're going to push it towards more of a cooperative experience. The Legend's more of like it could be cooperative if you wanted to, but I feel like everyone's going to want to see who can win in a fight, Punky or Killer Keith. That's something you can definitely do in Legend pregame now, is like have
Punky.
Well, in its current game, not in its current state, because we found out that Killer Keith is really powerful in its current state, but against because he's got that health regeneration thing, and Punky didn't have that. So, but there's little things like that. It's fun to like see who's gonna like win it and stuff. But yeah, it's a great. Both the Legend and Cast pre-games are foundations for larger things to come. We'll just say that. Like,
yeah.
We have a lot more advanced ideas for this mode. We just want to get it started.
Okay, that sounds great.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Some other things we're bringing up into the update too. We're just testing this over the weekend. You are currently when you play the game, it feels like very fast paced, and we felt like it was almost like too fast paced. We felt like some of the character movements didn't feel like they had weight to them. Like it kind of felt almost as if you were playing Counter-Strike 1.6 and you could just like bunny hop around everywhere, obviously not to that degree, but we certainly wanted to, we had that in mind. Like we really wanted to see what we could do to maybe alleviate that. So we've kind of toned down all of the movement speed for all the characters, and we're going to introduce some sort of like acceleration over time. So like you can't just sprint at full speed right away. Kind of your character kind of like builds up speed over time, and then like directional movement speed. So you can't really like strafe as fast as you can as if you're going running full speed forward. So we've been testing some of that in our build, and it feels really good. It's kind of like slowed the game down a little bit, but it kind of feels more immersive now.
It also drastically improved the melee combat.
Right.
By slowing it down a little bit, and it just feels scarier. You can see things happening better. Yeah, we're adding different types of direction. We're making the movement and jumping way more advanced than it is right now. We probably can get into that. Probably can't get too far into that right now because it's just still in the works and haven't fully tested it out. But yeah, that's going to make the game feel a lot more. It's going to feel a lot better, a lot more polished. It's not as exciting maybe, but but yeah, movement speed.
It is a huge gameplay change.
It might not sound exciting, but like as soon as we did it, we're like, this is perfect. Like, oh my god, we're excited to like actually do some full on games with this type of speed and actually kind of push it even further with the more dynamic movement mechanics we're going to be adding.
Right. Should we talk about the? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Should we talk about the little footstep adjustment we did? Like, because we weren't happy with people like sprinting everywhere all the time. We wanted to incentivize the stealth a little bit more, so we lowered a lot of like the footstep sounds for when you're crouched and when you're just walking, and we increased the volume of footsteps for when you're running to try to incentivize being a little bit more stealthy.
Yeah. There's a lot of there's gonna be a whole balance. All the balance is gonna be different. We're gonna be retool everything based on this new movement system and having footsteps be quieter as part of that. Like we want to give people a reason to walk slower and be more careful about their actions. Not be as reckless. A lot of people are very anxious to just run up to Punky and start shanking them with that switchblade. And it's like, you're just gonna get all right and just smack them and they're dead. It's like, well, now you're gored. How does that feel? It's just, they get really they feel really empowered to do so. Like, well, maybe we gotta incentivize them to be more careful. But this is the type of conversations we have all the time. Like, how do we do that without making it feel like super nerfed? And
no, absolutely. So a little bit more Splinter Cell and a little less Trevor from GTA 5. So no, I can definitely appreciate that. What
Splinter Cell?
Dude, Splinter Cell's awesome.
Metal Gear's better. Get it right.
Oh, shut up.
They're both good games, to be fair.
Fair enough.
Thank you. At least he understands me. Anyway, David, you've been awful quiet.
I'm so excited for your updates. I'm sitting here like, oh my god, that is gonna be a freaking blast. I didn't really get to take in the game too much because I was playing with Zach. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
Would be like when I play the game, like I try to I like to explore like the environment and everything because it was really cool, the map that we were playing in. And then he just like popped out of nowhere. It's like, all right, I'm gonna give you a head start. And I just kept closing the door on him and kept opening the door. I was like, no way, no. So yeah, then he like disappeared. I was like, all right, it's my chance to run. And we were, I went outside, and then it was like really foggy, and I think it was like woods. I don't know what map we were playing.
Cabin.
The cabin. Okay.
It was a cabin in the forest.
Cabin in the forest.
The cabin in the forest.
Yes. Cabin in the woods.
Sometimes you're gonna hit that nail on the head.
It was really exciting playing that game. I had a freaking blast. Doing that today with Zach. It reminded me of like playing like Manhunt and Resident Evil. It had like all those.
Manhunt. No, I love Manhunt, dude. It takes me back.
It had those elements of like Manhunt where you have to kind of hide, and then like it comes in with the stealth. Like you have to be quiet, and if you're not quiet, they realize you're there. Then you gotta run and hide again. So it reminded me of Manhunt a lot.
God, Manhunt. That's where Rockstar's ceiling is. That's how far they want to go.
Yeah.
And by the way, huge dick to play with. He's terrible. I played Broforce with this guy a lot, and he's just awful. And he plays this game the same exact way. Like,
are you pointing at me or him?
No, Zach. I'm pointing exactly at Zach. That's why you would hear like shouting from two ends of the room while we play this. You can go to hell. You're being a tick. Stop hiding behind there. Stop camping. The way that he would play Broforce is he would get all the way to the end of Bro. I don't know if you guys ever played Broforce.
Yeah.
Okay, so he would get all the way to the end of By the way, for our podcasters, Broforce is a fantastic game. You can play as 80s action stars, and you play all the way till at the end of a level, and you kill Satan, and then you hop on a helicopter while the rest of the scenery behind you explodes. It's fucking fantastic. It's an America fuck yeah kind of game. But he'll get to the end of the level while the rest of his teammates are almost there. He'll kill the devil, and then hop on the helicopter and leave us the fuck to explode. And as soon as he does it, we're all like, dick, as he flies away. He'll sit there and wait. He'll camp on the devil, and then at the last second, shoot him, and then hop on the airplane and run away. We're right there, and terrible. Just terrible.
So in Horror Legends, Zach would be the one that's at the sigil ready to escape, and then you'd be getting chased by the legend, and then you'd get killed, and then he would win the game.
Yeah, that is it. Well, I mean, if you could find the sigil, which obviously he couldn't the last time. That's the only way I was able to kill him. The clock ran down. He just could not find the sigil at all. But yes, he would absolutely be that guy. He would survive, and the rest and 5 of the other cast members would all die. Oh my god.
To be fair, that's usually how I win at Friday the 13th. I let everybody do their thing. I'm like, I'm just gonna repair this boat or car and get out. Yeah, see ya.
And you literally have like a survivor running to the boat, like, help me! Nope.
We actually have an update coming to the glyph and sigil mechanic we're pretty excited about.
We got to talk about this, yeah.
Yeah, so
Nice.
right now the way it currently works is that you find this glyph in the map, you hit it, and a timer starts, and you kind of wait until the timer finishes, and then the sigil will appear, and it's an escape portal, right? We're changing that. When you have the timer will actually changes dynamically based on how many players are in there. So, like, say if it's 1-on-1, it's going to be less time to survive than it would be with 8 players. Like, say if you have 8 players, it's going to be like a time limit of 20 minutes. So the legend has 20 minutes to kill everyone, but say if it's one person, they have like 5 minutes to survive. Okay. But here's another thing we're adding. This
is the coolest part.
Yeah. So are you familiar with the specters and how they work? The ghosts that you turn into when Killer Keith kills you?
No, we haven't gotten to that yet. So far, the only multiplayer, like where it's more than just 3, like 1-on-1, it's I've just done Punky. We haven't had more than 3 people in a game for Killer Keith yet.
Okay. Well, if you have more than 3, if you die against Killer Keith, you become a ghost, right? And these ghosts, one of their objectives is to find these little ghostly orbs that actually reduce the timer of the glyph. What we're doing is bringing those orbs into the cast gameplay. And so the cast can now find these. So once they get the glyph, they can actually continue to find these mini glyphs, or we're not really sure what they're going to look like quite yet, but we can find these items in the map that will shorten the timer down. So you have something to do. You can either sit there and wait out the longer timer, or you can go and be proactive and shorten the timer and make it easier to escape. But here's the catch: the legend can find it too, thus freezing the timer, and you have to find another glyph item to continue start the timer back up. So if you're not proactive and you're just camping, and the legend finds that thing, and finds the I'm hesitant to call it the glyph because it's not really a glyph; it's something else. But I'll call it the ghost item for now. Once the legend finds that ghost item, it will freeze the timer, and now you have to go out and find the item, or else you're just not going to escape. So we're adding that to the game to kind of keep the players more active, rather than just sit in a corner and wait for that 8 minutes to count down.
Yes.
So as a legend, if you can't find the cast, and you're having trouble tracking them, try finding the glyph and activating it. It will freeze the timer. Nice. Which will make it a little bit more exciting it gives the legend a little bit more of an edge in the match.
Right. I think we've noticed that was probably one of our biggest weaknesses with our gameplay. And we have been kind of like bouncing off ideas over the past several months and how to like alleviate that issue. And I think we've kind of settled on something that really works in all sort of like realms, because like the way it is currently, it's like once you find that glyph, as Drake touched upon, it's like, well, you could technically just sit in a corner and wait for the time to go down and then run to the escape. Like that, you could technically do that. Mind you, it might not be the best strategy. You might not have like a gun or ammo to defend yourself when you need to get there, but it is something that you could do. But now, if the legend finds the ghost item and freezes the timer, now the cast are kind of like forced to come out of like wherever they're camping and find a new ghost item to continue that timer. And the other thing that I think is really important to touch on too is it's like sometimes when you're playing the legend, there might be a scenario where you're kind of like you're feeling on the back foot. The cast might have the upper edge on you, and this might give the legend a way to kind of like come back in the game a little bit, kind of bring him back into the game. If he's fallen behind a little bit, give him something to do other than just like stalking the cast. He can do something else to affect the gameplay while not stalking the cast. So I think it's a really neat element there.
I know exactly what I would do if I was one of the legends and everything else. I'd wait till probably like 10 seconds are left on the timer and then shut the time off. So if everybody's camping and everything else, just to be like 10, 9, nope, not today. Nope, not today. Yeah, that'd be fun. It'd be nice to see how you feel when you play Bro Force in this game.
I'll just sneak around and do it back to you. It's not that hard.
No, you can see what type of gamers are in this room. Very competitive, but we have a lot of fun playing this game, and playing most of the games that we play.
Oh yeah, you literally combine like two of my favorite elements on this planet is like video games and horror. So, man, it was such a freaking blast playing the damn game. It was. I want to play it now.
Don't worry, I'll kill you after we're done with this interview.
You know what? And just so I know huge one. Just so you know too. I mean, guys. I mean, we are we are huge fans of art and everything else, but we are. We are critical to say the least about art and what we watch and everything else and how we think about it. And when we give you the high praise that we are, you absolutely deserve it. I mean, not only is this game, considering this is, like I said, a passion project among only a few people. First of all, it looks like you spent a considerable amount of money on it. This could have been done by a major studio. That's me as the executive producer side of things. That's what I ask everybody about our episodes is how much money do you think we spent on this, and they say it. I was like, nah, we spend way less. That's my threshold of how I judge a lot of things. But and also too, I mean, this is it's fun. It's a fun damn game. It gets me back to remembering what it was like when games were fun and exciting, and and engaging. So, when we give you that, the high praise, we're not doing it to blow smoke up your skirt. We really mean it. We really are impressed with what you guys were able to do. And we cannot wait, to see what's next.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks
thank you.
so much. And I just want to say, you've seen nothing yet.
No, I very much look forward to see where this game is in a couple of years. I know you're still in like the very early alpha stages of it, and I've seen a lot of games just like some of the biggest examples I could think of, like where they started, like The Forest. That was the biggest example. I remember back when early access just kind of started. Looking at the game, I'm like, all right, that looks okay, but meh. And then like 4 years later, the game is fully playable. It's got a good story, great survival elements, and everything like that. And that was done by a small team. Some of my favorite games today were done by like a handful of people. Salt and Sanctuary was done by a married couple. That was just 2 people who did that. I believe Stardew Valley was done by 1 or 2 people. If I remember correctly, I heard somebody say that. Stranded Deep, that game's been in development since 2015, and that game's come a long way. So, yeah, I very much look forward to see where this game is like next year, 2 years down the line. I can't wait.
Well, just give you an idea, like when we launched it in November, like it was punky and 4 cast members. There was a lot of mechanics missing, like there was no glyph. There was no cops. There was no gourd AI. There was just a timer and a couple cast members running around with shotguns, pretty much fighting Punky. and they died and became gourds. That was all that was in November, and now we have like at least 10 times more content we did in a year. So, yeah, we're just gonna keep going. Like, like I've been trying to make this for 5 years. I'm not gonna stop now. So.
One thing I did want to do, guys, because I did want to get an opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth. We were talking about the game design and everything else, and a lot of things how you get started. I would love to talk about the actual legends and what inspired you for those legends, and then also talk about the maps and what inspired you for those maps. I mean, I have guesses, but I'm very, much. I would very much like to, hear you guys' perspective on these, break down the legends for me, and then tell me, what inspired them for you guys. That way our podcasters can get an idea.
Well, the game's got actually has a story behind it. There's these characters. I plan to do a comic series from the whole thing, and you can see you guys actually have an issue right there. All the characters have some part to play in the story. Horror Legends is kind of a universe of monsters, and kind of the story will kind of be like a monster of the week, but with an overarching narrative connecting them. I have a few things planned for that once I have more time to work on a comic. Getting to the characters is, like Punky being the big bad and kind of our poster boy. He was very important to get right. He really is. I spent a long time just designing his head. Like when I was sitting down and think, okay, I want to make this game. Like I had this idea, like the concept for gameplay first, before I even knew what the characters were. And I think I want to make a monster that when he kills you, turns you into his minion. Like I like that idea because I was playing Alien vs Predator back in the day, and there was a mode called Infestation, where you get killed as an alien, you become an alien, and it was like kind of a survival mode. And I wanted to like take that idea and like kind of like do my own thing with it. And I was like, well, what if there's one big badass one, and when he kills you, he turns into a little one. And so I didn't want to like have anyone like one thing we want to avoid with just the game design in general is having people do nothing. Like, we don't want you to sit in lobbies. We don't want you to like wait for the next round to start. We want you to be playing in some form. And Punky was kind of the start of that with the gourd mechanic, having you turn into a gourd. With the idea of this mechanic in mind, I was like, well, what kind of characters could I make around this idea? And at first I was like, maybe a zombie, like, kind of like attacks you and you become a zombie. But I was like, no, I'm just not really into that. And it's like, what's something really recognizable but hasn't been like really done yet? And like, well, I love the movie Pumpkinhead, and I was always disappointed with that movie because Pumpkinhead wasn't a pumpkinhead creature. He was just like a xenomorph with like a bulbous sack on his head. Like,
essentially.
I'm glad I'm not the only person that had that thought now.
Yeah.
I love Pumpkinhead. Don't get me wrong. I love Stan Winston. I try to draw a huge inspiration from their designs. But like, yeah, Pumpkinhead, when I first saw him, like, a little disappointed it wasn't a jack-o'-lantern. So I was like, well, okay, I want to do like a Pumpkinhead monster. I never, like, you can't really name too many like Pumpkinhead characters. Like, Pumpkinhead monster is an iconic monster type, but like there's never been a character revolving around it other than maybe Headless Horseman. But really, I don't know if necessarily counts because he just throws the pumpkins, doesn't really wear it. Is that what you're wearing, a Headless Horseman?
Yeah.
Nice.
Headless Horseman shirt.
I love the Sleepy Hollow movie with the Horseman and how awesome he like wields his sword and stuff, or his axe. But me, I never really felt like he was a Pumpkinhead character, right? So like, I want to make like the most badass Pumpkinhead character I come up with, and I came up with like this. I spent most of my time designing the head, right? It's just like, what could I do that's not a jack-o'-lantern? It's a straight up jack-o'-lantern. And I sat down and started drawing mini sketches. You actually, in the comic book, in the back, you could see all those sketches that I was drawing, searching for the right design. There's a whole concept art book in the back of the comic. It's like, it's in between the actual comic and there you go.
I see it.
I can see see the corner and I recognize like the little bit that I saw. Yeah, if you keep flipping back, you'll see like I think one of the first pages of the concept art section has Punky concept art in there, and I was like trying to find the right head for this character, and one of them you'll see like the teeth, like it's kind of got a smile. I don't remember exactly where on the page it is, but once I know like I like the
skull and a pumpkin.
Yeah, I like the Cheshire cat smile. It's like I want to take something like that, but put it in the pumpkin, and then yeah. I'm gonna spend a lot of time talking about Punky's design because I put a lot of thought into it. I'm afraid I'm gonna.
Well, he's a very well designed character, so.
Thank you. But where was I going with that? So basically, yeah, like once I found that I liked the pumpkin, the teeth, and then I was like, well, another big element of the design was this. The poster for Halloween 2. I like his original head was going to be just a skull extruding from the pumpkin. I was like, that's cool and all, but it's very generic. And I feel like anyone can come up with that in a second. So I wanted to do something even. I want to take that idea and just do my own thing with it. Like, okay, I want to mix a skull and a pumpkin together. And what do you got? You kind of got the teeth in there. He's got like a skull-like face with like pig nose. And then I put the skull inside the head. I don't know if you noticed in the game, but if you open up Punky's jaw, his actual skull is in there with his eyes. So like his human skull is actually inside the jack-o'-lantern. You might be able to find a picture of it in there somewhere. But if you play the game, when you crouch and you look all the way up, his mouth will open all the way up. You can see inside his head, and you see he's got this skull in there with his eyes, and that's his actual human head. The actual pumpkin head itself is a mask, essentially. But yeah, that's once I got that. So Punky started off as a game mechanic first, and then a character design, and then once I had the design down, I started the actual story around him because, like, as a game, the story's not that important. But as like I'm a filmmaker at heart, like I love storytelling and stuff. It's like, okay, I got to make a story around this. I spent tons of time just like figuring out what I want his character to be, and researching like watching just tons of movies and just trying to find that, like, I want him to feel like he could exist alongside of Freddy Krueger or those iconic characters. Like I was researching them, like what makes them so much fun as a campfire tale, and like kind of like use that as like that whole like template of like, oh, they have like this tragic past or something like that, but like Punky, I didn't want it to be redeemable at all. Like I want him to be kind of a bastard. So I made him like, kind of like Freddy. He's like child killer. He kidnapped. He's actually the guy that you think poisons your candy in Halloween Night. That's Punky's original.
Nice.
Like when you play as human Punky, and you read the comic, you'll notice he's got kids tied up to scarecrow poles. Like he got those kids because he gave them poison candy and they passed out, and he captured them and then tied them up for this ritual. Like it's kind of a fucked up story. But I didn't want to.
I read the comic and I really like it, and I looking forward to when you like continue the story and everything like that. Because I was gonna say, there's definitely a lot of opportunity in that comic for you to turn it into a film and make it a next good slasher villain.
Nice.
Oh, I mean, I wanted to make a good slasher villain. Like I had a blast like researching slasher villains and like making like that was the first horror character I ever made. Really, like I was a fan of horror up to that point, and I was like, I never tried making my own. Like I've made lots of characters that I haven't done anything with in the past for previous projects, but I've never made like a horror monster before, so it was fun. But yeah, once I got that, like he's kind of like the big bad of the first arc of the comic. The arc kind of revolves around a big confrontation between him and Ryan Steele, who is the survivor in the comic. She's that little girl that escapes. So you can play as her adult version in the game, but in the comic she's an adolescent, and she survived Punky's crazy Halloween ritual and was able to escape. And it's kind of part of why Punky looks the way he does is because he never was able to complete this crazy ritual on Halloween night, and is kind of looking to finish the job by killing Ryan in the story. And once he does, it might do something, like it might I don't want to like spoil it, so I'm trying to like talk around it, but like it will change Punky forever in a way, and he's eager to do that. So it's kind of got this dynamic where he's got that one that got away, and he's kind of like, but he's not. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down with one.
That's right.
But like,
That's right.
I can start talking about him forever. But, I have so many plans for him, and Punky would always be involved in all the stories that I have planned. I have like 3 arcs, and the first arc is about Punky, and Ryan and Punky having that confrontation because Ryan, after survival and after surviving the encounter of the first comic, she actually gets adopted by the witch that creates the glyphs in the game. There's like this witch. She's actually in the comic for like 2 panels. Talks to the sheriff near the end. Her nickname is Nana, and she is a very powerful witch that actually hunts monsters. And she kind of like adopts Ryan after her dad gets killed by Punky in the comic. I'm just spoiling the comic. I can't talk about it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
Gotta put a spoiler before this.
I call it issue 0 because all it does is supposed to set the stage for the rest of the story. So spoiling this comic is not necessarily a big deal because the real story starts at issue 1 and then goes on from there. But yeah, Ryan gets adopted by Nana, and Nana actually starts to teach her some basic witchcraft, but she also teaches her how to become a monster hunter in a way. And Ryan goes on all these adventures hunting different types of legends. And every couple issues, she meets another legend that's in the game. So the next issue, actually, I've already started writing it. I'm already like a fourth through it. Is her encounter with Killer Keith, and she's not really the main character in this plot, but she kind of gets reintroduced, and you kind of get to see what her like a normal hunt for her goes, how it works out and stuff, and how she feels comfortable around these legends, knows how to deal with them, and it's not her first time fighting a monster. Yeah, and again, actually, that gives me a good opportunity to talk about Killer Keith. Killer Keith, I did not design him. That was a friend of mine who designed him. It's actually he's in the credits of the game. His name's Gage Linston. He's a really good artist. Yeah, I used to work with him, and he made this awesome like slasher character for a game we were gonna make for Horror Legends. That we never got to do it. So when I started making Horror Legends, I'm like, hey man, can I get that slasher character that you made for this other game, and as like a placeholder before, so when I make my character I can just replace it, which ended up being Punky. But then as we were testing it, we're like, oh man, we really like this character. Do you mind if we just keep it? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he actually like remade the character in the proper art style and everything so it fit Horror Legends. So we actually he just gave me the design, and I started writing the story around the character. Now I always pitch Killer Keith as he's like a junkyard version of Michael Myers. Like he is in the universe of Horror Legends, slasher, like supernatural slashers like Jason and Michael are actually like a phenomenon. Like their origins are not necessarily like the reason why the way they are is because of a tragic, when I was researching horror characters to make Punky, there's a commonality amongst most of the slashers from the 80s, and usually there's they all have some kind of tragic thing happen to them and they get revenge, right? So I was like, well, it'd be cool if in my universe these characters, these slashers have there's a reason why that happens to them. And since we introduced magic and stuff into the universe with witchcraft and whatnot, that maybe there's this very rare occurrence if someone is wronged and they feel very say in the case of everyone knows Jason's origin, Jason came back because he was horribly wronged by camp counselors, right? And what caused him to come back? No one ever explains it except for maybe in part 9 where it's no one likes the explanation. And it's so wacky that it never doesn't fit or anything like that. In our universe, it's kind of like a thing that could happen to anyone, but it's very rare. And if the right conditions are met, you could actually haunt your own body and you become this unkillable force of nature to react to your revenge. But you kind of lose your soul. You're kind of this just vengeful spirit happening in your body, just trying to get right the wrong that happened to you. So Killer Keith, I don't want to spoil how he became the way he was, but essentially some shitty ass teenagers messed him up or did something terrible to him, and a year later he comes back to get revenge. And it's but there's a lot of setup to like the slasher lore in the Horror Legends universe with Killer Keith, and it could happen again. Like there could be other characters that are like that, and all of them are different based on their own personality. But once they get resurrected by whatever, they get haunt their own body again and become like this unstoppable killer. There's like everyone's a little different. So.
It's like the Crow, except he doesn't have to leave at the end of the movie.
He's got no memory. He just has that one mission. He becomes the Terminator. He just resurrects and becomes the Terminator. He has to kill that one bastard that wronged him. And basically, if he does that, if he accomplishes his goal, he'll just keep killing anyone that resembles him. So it kind of makes sense why Jason only kills camp counselors, because camp counselors wronged him. Even if he never kills the right ones, like he only sees in broad terms. So Killer Keith's the same way. Like he will see like a bunch of shitty like prep school students messed him up and did something wrong to him that I don't really give away just yet. And once you discover that, like you realize, oh, that's why he's just singling out those type of people, because he just sees them all as the same person. He's just like this shell of what he used to be. But what they did to him was so wrong that kind of you feel like he might be able to justify it in his own mind or something, if he had really much of a mind left. But that explains why he doesn't talk or anything like that. So I try to explain away all the cliches of a slasher with the lore of the universe. I got 2 legends down. Well, 3, because Human Punky and Punky are the same, and the gourds are actually tied into that, where the gourds are Punky's previous victims. So Punky kills you in the game, you become a gourd, right? So in the lore, it's the same way. But every time Punky kills someone, he gets more powerful. He can do whatever he wants with that person's soul, make them do their bidding. It's just another tool for him to use. So in the story, like you see him like in the story, the punks kind of let him loose, and he resurrects himself to. Like Punky is able to resurrect himself because like he gets a little bit of energy to complete his ritual that he never finished, and is able to once he kills one of them, he gets a little bit stronger. He has their soul, and then kind of keeps snowballing that. And he actually invades the town Hudson Meadows in the comic, and actually just becomes like gremlins. Like the gourds are everywhere. Every time he kills someone, he gets another soul, and he turns into a gourd, and it becomes like. It's like Freddy Krueger and Gremlins mixed in a way. It's the gourds. They're very much like Gremlins. They have this very macabre sense of humor, and they're just like very kamikaze. Like I had this idea in the comic of having a bunch of gourds trying to drive a car, and they're like running into shit, and they're very comical characters.
I very much look forward to the lady gourd, the bat gourd, the smart gourd. The singing gourd, the spider gourd, that's the vegetable gourd. For obvious reasons. The spider gourd, especially the one that comes down the hallway while they sing Slayer, Angel of Death in the background. These are things I'm very much looking forward to.
Gourds actually, old Punky and the gourds actually have it's not in the game quite yet. We're debating whether we want to put it in the game, but in the comic lore, Punky can he's I forgot the term. He could change his shape of his body. What's the term for that? Or like
shapeshift, or
not shapeshift, but like he can. I forgot the name. Like, what is someone that could like contort themselves?
Transform?
Not transform.
Contortionist.
I think it is contortionist. Punky and the gourds can contort their body to do the thing. So like, Punky could actually like stretch his arm out a little bit further than he could normally. And the gourds can actually like contort their bodies into like a spider form and scurry around the ground. I actually have an animation for it and everything. Punky was going to do that too, but it would have made him too OP in the game. We're still debating whether or not we should put it in. But basically, Punky would have
the gourds actually sounds like a really good like band name too, by the way.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I must have not been the only person thinking that.
There's gonna be a band in the comic now, and just watch.
Yeah.
Band, it's Punky's kind of he has a sense of humor, or he is kind of silly. He like part of Punky's motivation to invade that town is like, well, I was this like hermit that used to live in the farmhouse of the outskirts of this town. Well, now how about I just become mayor? And he goes to the mayor's house and like kills the mayor and just sits in his chair for a while. Like gives you an idea of Punky's character. he relishes in his new power. Like he doesn't really care about his own well-being. He doesn't really once he transforms into that monstrous version of himself, he kind of becomes a different person where he's just like he just throws caution out the wind and he just does whatever and has fun doing it. And invading that town is kind of a fun, scary moment in the comic. Like seeing the Gremlins invade the town in the movie Gremlins. Seeing Punky and his Gorge will do the same thing. They'll do something similar. Like they'll just wreck shit to wreck shit because why not? What else they can do? So, and that's Bunky's satisfied with being the mayor of Hudson Meadows for a while in the comic. He's not really the mayor, but he fibs himself because he kills everyone. But that's what the take place in Brian's old hometown. But and she's got to like go through it and kind of fight off the gourds and get to Punky and kind of save her old hometown. But yeah, that's I think I got all the legends in that long-winded spiel. But
I mean, if you want to take a breath there, Drake, I can
yeah,
chip in
go
a
for
little
it.
bit. So what's kind of interesting about my experience with this is that Drake had a lot of the legends and lore written before I really joined into the project. So where I kind of come in is like we're kind of talking several months down the line about what new legends that are going to be coming out in the future. We have about I think it's about he before I joined, Drake had about I think at least 5 that he's written already, but we're not going to release them all right after the werewolf. We're going to kind of incorporate some other ones in there as well. And I think one thing that we certainly lack in our game currently is a female legend. And that's something that we definitely want to get into our game ASAP.
It's coming out in the end of the year. Before the end of the year, it'll be a female legend for the game. I'll just say that.
Yeah. So some inspirations from my side that I brought into Drake. We actually, it was funny. The very first time that we met each other, we watched the movie Begotten together. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
Neither have I.
Begotten.
It's a very artsy sort of independent horror-ish film. I don't know, Drake. How did you describe that film?
Experimental.
Experimental, right? That's a good way to describe it. But honestly, it just plays a lot on your you kind of almost create the idea of what's behind this movie and its story. There's not any dialogue. It's just a lot of really gory and gruesome images playing on. But I think the best part of the film is probably the first 20 minutes of the film. And it's very disturbing. There's a lot of disturbing images, but that film kind of inspired one of our potential legends we're going to write in the future as far as a female legend. And some of the loose topics we thought about this legend doing is that it would move very, very slowly. But it would create these holographic images of itself, or just and these images of itself wouldn't be necessarily the real one, but the legend would be able to teleport maybe to these holographic images, and at any moment that image could just sprint at you at a million miles an hour. So she would move very, very slowly. And you would think that by looking at one of these images of her that she wasn't the real one, but if you looked close enough, you could maybe see her moving around, and then she might have this ability where she could sprint at you super fast or something. So those are some I know that's obviously I think way down the line, but you asked us about some of the process of other legends we're working on. So but credit to Drake because he's done a lot of work on writing most of the lore and everything himself so far. So it's really neat to see all that, and I'm enjoying the process as well.
A big part of why it's a whole universe is when I was growing up, I would always try to connect the dots between all the horror franchises and see how can these work together. Once you see Jason Goes to Hell, you see that Necronomicon and the Freddy Glover, like, wait, they're all connected. And like, my adolescent brain's just like, oh my God, like trying to like think like how do they all fit together. And it never really works because they all have different directors, different concept, or different like scopes and stuff. But like with Horror Legends, I wanted to make a universe where all of them could exist cohesively, and it works. Like you could have like this insufferable slasher, but also like 1,000 miles in the other direction, there's a pumpkinhead monster becoming mayor of a town. Yeah. So yeah, we're also now we're introducing a werewolf, so there's going to be a story into that. The werewolf's going to be part of the lore. I don't want to talk too much about what it is because I feel like it's not quite ready yet. But but yeah, every character will have a story, play a part in the comic and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. The one other question too I was going to ask was about the maps. I'd love for you to have an opportunity just to talk about each map, and then describe it a little bit, and then describe what inspired it.
Well, Punky's Farmhouse is in the comic. It's where the events happened in the comic. You'd actually find specific locations. I don't know if you've explored the corn maze or the cornfield very much, but there is a spot in the cornfield where you can go, this is where this happened in the comic. The whole map is kind of narrative driven. Like you get to visit the location of the map or of the of the comic and stuff, but the other maps are not as tied closely to what's in the comic right now. But I know we have big plans for Nick's the map Nick designed, the Dream Realm. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the Dream Realm, Nick.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, the Dream Realm was basically the first map I made for Horror Legends, and I'll tell you, like, the process of making a map is like, it took several months to make that thing come to life. But credit to Drake, because he was the one who did a lot of like the artwork as far as like doing like the mirrors in the hallways to give the Nightmare on Elm Street feel and all that. But as a kid, I always liked to draw mazes in class. When the teacher was talking and doing her like her lecture, I'd always be like drawing mazes in class. I love drawing mazes. And so I guess what inspired this map is that it's definitely kind of maze-like, but I really wanted to kind of also give it that feel of it being like a bit like a haunted house maze sort of feeling. And I wanted the map to feel like if you played it once, you might not know all of it, but if you come back even like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you might find something new in the map that you didn't even know about, and that's, I think, the complexity of the map where it kind of really shines. I know it's not the best for new players, but I think in the long run, that kind of philosophy.
I know all too well. That was the first map I played.
Right. And so like
trying to find those torches, man, was a pain in the ass.
Once you learn that map, you can do some cool stuff in it by scaring people or getting a drop on them. There's a lot of cool play styles you can attempt.
Yeah,
especially with the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like to hide behind a mirror. Like I do with Killer Keith, I like to like hide behind one of those mirrors you can walk through and just pull my knife up and have the cast walk by it, and I just come out of the mirror and stab them. Like they don't really expect it because they see the reflection first, and there's always that moment I know in their heads they're seeing the reflection. I'm like, wait, is that Killer Keith? And boom, I got them. I want to give all the legends the tools they need to scare people, and I feel like the Dream Realm gives them that in spades as far as like design. Like the stairs room allows you to like just, the legends have no falling damage, so you can just like see a cast down there at the bottom of the stair room and just drop down right next to them, or like just make these risky jumps to try to like cut off the cast or do something cool. And the cast's gonna have like these cool moments where they're jumping from stairs to stairs and just barely missing the legend. There's a lot of cool play styles in there that you couldn't do on the farmhouse or you couldn't do on the cabin.
Right.
So I think it showcases how versatile our game is. with that
Yeah.
map. It's just like all this crazy ideas are in there, and it's just like whoa,
Yeah.
and it works.
To play off what Drake's talking about, you know, like I think if we look back like 6 months ago, we had Punky's farmhouse map, we had the cabin, and then we had hedge maze. We had
Mhm.
about 3 maps, and going forward, we didn't want to like put ourselves in sort of a box. We wanted to like have the possibility to create these kind of like more outside of the box maps, like the Dream Realm, and so I think with a couple of adjustments on on mine and Drake's end, we were able to come to some center point that really is now going to allow us to like almost have any map be possible. Like we really kind of want to open the possibilities as far as the maps are concerned, because we're going to have all the maps kind of like that are tied to the comic book, and that's all you're going to be able to feel like you're kind of playing the storyline. You're going to be able to feel like you're in the world of the comics. But then there's going to be, we're going to tie in these kind of like these maps that aren't necessarily tied to the comic, but are tied to maybe the lore in a different way. We have yet to cross that bridge exactly how we're going to fit that in yet, but I don't think that should be too hard.
All the maps could show up in the comic, but not all of them. Not all of them probably will. So there might be one or two that might never show up in the comic, but it all depends. It all
Right.
depends on like maybe I have this idea for a story element. Like it'd be really cool if this was set in the cabin. Like it'd be cool if this scene was at the cabin's map, or like we did something like that. But yeah, like the making the cabin, like going back to making like talking about the cabin and the hedge maze, those are actually those came really quickly after we launched in November, and I was like, I need to make more maps. The game definitely needs more variety. So I started working. Came up with a couple of concepts for something I could make within my limited time and budget at the time. And it's like, well, I need to make a small map and a map that is relatively simple. And I was like, okay, a cabin map, I think it'd be really cool to like. It'd be cool to have a smaller map, because then you have all the action in one spot, kind of focused. And I've always liked the idea of a map where all the survivors spawn inside of a barrack or some kind of fortress, and then the monster spawns outside. I've always like, again, going back to Alien vs Predator, when I played that, I always picked the map, the bunker, which no one probably knows what I'm talking about. Talking about a game that's nearly 20 years old.
I used to play AVP2 back when I was in like middle school.
I'm an AVP fanatic and still play the games to this day, specifically 2.
Nice. Well, yeah. Well, I played 2 religiously in high school, but the one before that, there was this map called the bunker. It's basically the bunker in this like open canyon area. All the Xenomorphs spawned outside, and the Marines were in the bunker and fighting off the. It was like you're in a pillbox from StarCraft or something, fighting off those aliens, and the aliens would claw through the windows and stuff. It was like a zombie apocalypse with Xenomorphs. It was really cool. I was like, well, I want to do that in Horror Legends, and I was like, okay, perfect setup for that would be a cabin in the woods, a classic horror map, and it set the idea of like we can do these iconic locations, like so you can kind of have your own, because if so you can play out your own horror movie sandbox experiences. So I wanted to give you the map. Started making those maps that are very iconic, so you could like, oh, I want to play it this way, like, or reenact this scene from a movie, or do something like that. You could do that. But the cabin was great second map, because it was a smaller environment. I could make it relatively quickly. It wasn't super complex. I remade the Punky farmhouse like 6 times in the 5 years we're trying to make this game, trying new iterations, testing map design. That map has been thought out like crazy. Like I came up with so many variations of it, smaller, larger. The one before that was like half the size. But the cabin was more of I wanted to keep it simple and keep the players kind of focused in on like a fast-paced gameplay style. And then the hedge maze is kind of the opposite approach, where it was super complex. And it was tied into a winter event that we did back last year in December. We did this event called Sleigh Bells, and we just created like these little Christmas bells like spawned randomly in the map, and you broke them for more XP. And the map is kind of like tied to that. We're gonna probably do something like that again this year. I just haven't thought about how yet, but we wanted to like do. I wanted to think. Oh, what's a good cool Christmas map or like a snow map or something for the season? And I watched The Shining. I'm like, oh my god, The Shining! Like the hedge maze from The Shining. It's super simple and it's very iconic. Like I can pretty much do that relatively quickly. When you're working with peanuts, like you gotta make some compromises. So it's a very simple map. The map has went through a lot of changes. It's very divisive in our community. Like some people hate it, some people love it because of the maze-like nature of it. And people kept complaining like, "Oh, I keep getting lost." Like, well, it's a maze. Like, that's how Jack Torrance dies. He got lost in there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I was afraid to like pull back. We pulled back quite a bit. Like, if I sent you a screenshot of the original version of that, you probably have a heart attack because you're like, how do you anyone find each other? But through iterations and stuff, like we've kind of got to where it is. Like we opened it up more. But the idea of a maze is kind of fun because like as the cast, it's kind of spooky to like walk around, and all of a sudden Legend just kind of walks out of a corner like shit, you got running down. It's actually pretty easy to lose a Legend in that maze. It's kind of fun as a cast, but as a Legend it can be kind of frustrating. But it depends.
I think something to play off what Drake just said is, like how that map went through so many revisions. Going back to what we talked about earlier in the podcast, like we don't want to hold players' hands, right? But we don't want the game to be too easy either. And so like we kind of like had this like interdimensional battle within ourselves, like do we make this map easier for people to play, or do we just let it play out and just leave the difficulty of the map in there? And I think we ended up coming to a good happy medium there because we really like toned down we toned down a lot of its challenges. But going forward, I think we really want to try to like push that philosophy of like challenging the player, like not making things too easy, because I feel like that's when things start to get boring, right? Like you might have fun playing the game for like a week, and then all of a sudden you know the map already and it's really easy. Whereas I think a long-term enjoyment is where something's challenging. It really tests your ability, right? And it makes you like, you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh man, I fucked up yesterday, and I got to get back on the game and figure it out, like.
Every gamer's thought when they get up in the morning.
Right?
Oh no.
I still have nightmares about the San Andreas train mission. One job, CJ, follow the train. Anyway, but yeah, no, I mean that's the.
Actually,
Well, one quick note: the hedge maze map, the music about that on that map is actually inspired from the famous Christmas song "Carol of the Bells." It's a really spooky version I wrote of "Carol of the Bells." So next time you play it, maybe have a listen for that.
Mm-hmm.
Will do.
Absolutely.
The Brennan, anything else?
I think we pretty much hit all the points.
Yeah,
that
we
wanted
really
to talk
did.
about.
I mean,
This has been a very rich interview, I think. Yep.
I have one more question. Looking at the concept art in the back, there's one concept art that I really like, and I want to know: is it a concept for Pookie, or is it like another character you plan on doing? It's this Ghost Rider looking character right here. Like, is that a
Spectre.
Spectre? Okay.
That's what you turn into when you get killed by Killer Keith.
Oh, that's what you turn into. Okay.
Yep.
All right, now I know. That's awesome.
The specters can fight each other too. So when you die against Killer Keith, you enter like this ghostly realm. It's kind of like a no man's land. You can see all the living players, but they can't see you, and everything's black and white. And you can actually fight. And if someone else dies, they become a ghost, and you can see them, and you can interact with them. And you can actually like shoot ghostly energy at each other and have like a ghost death match. Or you can decide to help the cast and find those ghost items and like activate those and try to speed up help them like with their process of escaping. Or you can just be a jerk and haunt the house. You can like open and close doors, break lights, confuse the Legend, turn on the fire pit or do something weird, because all your interactions are visible by all the playable characters or are living characters in the game, but they just don't see you doing it. So like sometimes you're walking through the cabin and you'll see a door just open and like what the hell, and like there's a ghost doing that, and someone you can have all the ghosts like just they could literally haunt that cabin if they wanted to.
All right.
We're probably gonna find more. We plan to add more ways for them to have fun and be just have fun little ghostly moments.
I think one of the coolest elements about that is allowing dead players to kind of like choose what side they want to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can either decide to get the ghost items and help the cast, or they can kill the other ghosts that are getting the ghost items and help the legend. So I think it's kind of unique that like once you're dead as a Spectre, you kind of like get to decide, hey, do I want to be on the cast team, or do I want to be on the legends team?
Yeah, it becomes
Also,
like this big thing.
and you're also not just waiting for the game to end after you die. You're still involved.
Yeah, you're still in it. You're still in.
game.
You're still in the stuff.
Yep.
That's something we notice about most horror games is that usually when you die, you don't have anything to do. It's either you're spectating or you're at the main menu ready to play a new game, and you have to go through the whole lobby system all over again. So
Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why there are a lot of games I don't play, because and I'm much more of a casual gamer than these guys, so I'm nowhere up to the skill as this one here. So obviously if I end up dying early on, what am I gonna do? So that's actually a very important aspect of the game to me.
That was very. I actually playing Counter-Strike growing up. It really frustrated me. I start the game and get headshotted by like an AK across the map. I'm like, I'm never gonna get good at this game. I can only play for like 10 seconds at a time where I get murdered. So like it became very like this. I became disinterested in the game really quickly because just like I can't compete with these people. They've been playing this game for like 20 years or whatever time. Back in the day it was like probably like 5 to 10 years, but like yeah. It's you want people to keep playing. Like when you turn on Horror Legends, my goal is to give you something to do. Like you're gonna jump in and play Horror Legends. You're not gonna wait in the queue. You're not gonna, join a late game and have nothing to do. Wait for the lobby to change and playing Friday. You jump in and everyone's in a lobby or everyone's playing a game, and then like when the game's over, half of them leave, and then you're like, this is a whole like struggle of getting the game started, and we're doing everything we can to like make that as easy and fun as possible.
This is what happens when gaming fans make games. We just you guys are living examples of that, being fans of video games and making games. I know you wanted to ask about mods.
Oh yeah. So later on in the future, after like the game, gets more polished and everything like that, and things start to take off, will you be adding any type of mod support in the future at any point?
Ooh, that's a big one.
That's just something I always think of just for games. I just for like longevity reasons and stuff like that. Like if it's still too early to think about that, that's fine by all means. I know you guys are still in the early stages and everything, but that's just. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say like we'd have to be really successful to make that a possibility. Just because like you're thinking about like game tools, like Hammer or whatever engine game tool like third-party game tools you might think of. Like those have to be developed. It's almost like a different game being developed. It's like a separate team has to make those tools. And make it actually add that functionality is a huge task. And usually when game studios can do that because they have the resources to allocate. Like, they can get the programmers will have like do it as a pet project, or they make their life easier, so they make these tools and they release them. Right now, our programmer is contract for hire, so like making those tools would be very out of scope. But like if the game works, I'm not totally like against it, but like as far as like it'd be a very unrealistic thing for me to promise at this stage.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Was there anything in specific that you were thinking about as far as mods? Like, was there something specific than that you wanted to be able to do with a mod or something. Because, you know, I think what's so cool about Horror Legends is that we have essentially the possibility to kind of like almost do whatever into the future. You know,
Well-
obviously within us with it to a degree, but yeah, like was there anything specific you were thinking?
So you've been talking a lot about Alien versus Predator, and I am an Alien and Predator fanatic, especially Predator. So I was thinking like maybe at some point, you know, like what it'd be cool like if you don't add characters that are like a xenomorph or a predator, maybe mod a predator and a xenomorph in there and have them duke it out or have them like hunt the cast and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Like that's the dream, right? Like essentially, the Horror Legends engine is kind of a tool for us to do that. Like we could do whatever. Like if I really wanted to and I had infinite time, I could just take the Horror Legends engine and make Alien versus Predator. That's like I could totally do that. Like I guess the trick is figuring out how to make those tools available to the public and make it so it's easier for them to use. They don't need like a college degree or in like a degree in animation to like do that, which would be harder because you have to like figure out like you have to really you think making a game is hard. I'm making tools for people to make games. Like you have to make it easier for them to make the game. So it's like wrapping your head around that. It's like almost it's really intense. And but I think it'd be awesome like to do that like because I think it would give the game life after you know once the game has been released out of early access. It would give the game so much life and a huge community to a lot of those tools. So I'm not against it. It's just a matter of like, is it possible within our budget and our time frame? But like, I just don't see even if the game like just is not successful. Like, I'm gonna keep working on it because I love it. So like, if I get the opportunity to share my tools, I'll find a way. Like, I'll figure out something. Yeah. I'm definitely open for mod support. It's just, yeah, like I said before, it's kind of hard to promise that or even figure out when it would be available at this stage.
Gotcha. I had no idea it was that complex. I thought it was just something that you just enabled or something like that, and then bam, you can like... Yeah, of course it wouldn't be that simple, but yeah.
Nothing ever is.
Nothing
Never is. Nothing ever is.
Just even when you think, no, just add that. Nope.
Think of all the times I've asked you to add an effect to something. Oh, you just add that to it, right?
No.
No, it's never that. It's never...
Or when you ask me to do something with my cinematography, you just add that, right? No.
No. The you know.
All right. Well, I learned something today. Thank you.
So Zach, any last minute stuff?
No, I think that's everything.
The B-Man.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot tonight. The game definitely has a rich lore to it. I'm looking forward to reading Zach's copy of the comic. I've really enjoyed the game so far. I'm super excited for all the stuff you have planned, especially the werewolf. Yeah, and like we said earlier, this game is essentially a horror fan's dream come true, and it's just going to keep building upon that.
The comic, every comic page is actually unlockable in the game too. So if you don't have the comic, you could unlock it using the game's progression system. I just want to throw that out there real quick.
Nice. Little hidden feature there.
That is a good feature. It's, like I said, I'm super excited for your updates. Your game in particular has got me going back to like PC and Steam, really, because it's been a while. Like the last time I was on Steam was like playing Killing Floor and Portal and all these.
Portal.
Yeah, that was the last time I was playing Steam. So your game's got me going back.
Well, you know, maybe what we should do. I don't know if you guys are open to it or not. Maybe we should just like set up a night where we all just play Horror Legends one night or something.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Look, I'm absolutely down for that.
That could be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that would absolutely be an absolute blast. The and then I guess I'll end it out and everything else. This is a really cool game, guys. Just really plain and simple. even if you're not a horror fan, and I'm saying this for you guys and for our viewers and everything else, even if you're not a horror fan of video games, but you're a fan of video games, please play this. It's an absolute blast. You know what? It reminds me of many different video game stories that I had growing up. Honestly, I would have loved to have played this when LAN parties used to be a thing. I remember I for the console person in the room and everything else, LAN parties were the bomb.
Oh yeah,
When
I remember. I've got
Remember LAN?
memories in high school. Halo 2.
Oh yeah!
We
Oh my
had
god! Yeah.
like 4 TVs spread
Yep,
across. two or
yep,
three
yep, yep.
rooms in the
And
house.
that's the first time I ever knew what an Ethernet cord was.
Wait, you played Halo?
The
Oh,
yeah.
awesome. I didn't
The
know that.
Halo's awesome.
But I
Of
mean,
course it's
that's
awesome.
that's what it reminded me of, guys. It reminded me of those, those staying up until 2 a.m. with with your best friends in 8th grade, playing, having 4 Xboxes running at the same time. It has that same feel, that same level of fun that I felt back then. I mean,
Only you get to murder your friends.
only you get to murder your friends. Which I know you talk to most Halo fans, they'll tell you that you could do it in there too.
You scare the crap out of them in that game.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no teabagging in this game, which is very, very, very nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's possible to teabag. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say I did it once or twice already.
That brings me
Like,
back.
every gamer's guilty of it.
Absolutely see
yeah.
people doing that to be jerks.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, my face
You
was
have
big
no
dark.
leg to stand on when calling
Look,
anybody
I don't
jerk.
teabag people. I just viciously murder them.
The
Okay, I'm
but
good at teabags. If you
but guys, from all of us at Midwest Horror, thank you so much for hopping on this. We really appreciate you guys, extending your time for almost 2.5 hours to come talk about your game. I can obviously see anybody, can see how passionate you both are about it, and we really appreciate. That's what we're all about. We're all about the passion of of doing the things that we love to do, because otherwise we would all be dead inside. And
Thank
so
you so
as
much,
you-
kind sir.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah, thank
sir.
you.
So and then
And we'll also be putting a link to the Steam page and your Facebook page and the description for this podcast episode
Website as well.
website as well.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up here, is there anything else that you two would like to plug?
yeah, we got the red carpet open for you. So anything upcoming events or any other cons or any festivals that you're going to be at, please tell all our podcasting audience.
Well, of course, definitely go to our website, octobergames.com, and you can join our Discord. That's probably a great way to get part of our community. Drake, what do you have anything else you wanna add?
Well, I mean, all the game is completely funded by Steam sales and my personal savings account. So, if support the game you can support the game by picking up a copy, and that money goes right back into the game. Adding polish and content and all that. And when the game sales don't make the difference, I put my own money into it. But you can also help by supporting us by picking up a shirt, or you can buy a digital version of the comic, or a Bloody Punky shirt, which is also the logo for the game. And you can buy a digital version of the comic. We don't have any physical versions of those left.
Okay, never mind.
Those ran out. But you can buy the game on comic. You can buy the comic on comiXology.com. You can buy our shirts on Threadless.com. We have a October Game shirt. We have a Punky shirt, and we have a print of the poster without all the words and text on it. You can buy a print of that on Threadless.com as well. It's along with other Threadless things. All that money goes right back into the game. So if you're looking to support the game beyond just buying it, that's a good way to do it. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys giving us this time to talk about the game, and it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's definitely been a blast, guys. And if anyone else is interested in seeing how the music process is, my music process for writing for the game is concerned, you can follow me on my Instagram, spectral_fields on Instagram, and then I also have a website, spectralfields.com, and have all the Horror Legends stuff up there, and post a lot of stuff on what I'm working on the game and So you guys have been awesome. You guys have been so positive, and we so much appreciate you guys. Having us on here, and really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we appreciate you coming.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming, guys. So and I'll close it out for.
Let's wrap it up.
Fair enough. Well, hey, as always, for all of our nightmareers out there, we really appreciate you. If you can give us a like, share, and subscribe, you can go ahead and visit us on Instagram and Facebook at
Midwest Horror Network. The changeover is finally complete.
Yes.
Oh wait, they actually allowed us to finally just put Midwest Horror Network on Facebook.
Yes.
Finally.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
it's been finally switched over, and then of course, go ahead and check us out on YouTube, where you can see all of these wonderful podcasts. Our main flagship show, Living Nightmares, and then all of our horror movie reviews and horror movie news, and also in addition, we have that wonderful makeup show, Antonisha show, coming very, very soon. We're very excited about it. Thank you. Always give us that like, share, and subscribe. Tell your aunts, your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, best friends, neighbors. That would always be appreciated. Take it easy, y'all. Bye.
Squirrels.
Right.